Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining this session today. It's been a while since we last met. I think it's been 4 or 5 months, I think, since our last Citrix Troubleshooting Masterclass. We're excited today to be back and to be joined by Kris Davis, who is a former Citrix CTA. He's also a power user of Goliath. We've got Martin Quinnen as well, who is from our client success engineering team, and I am Kiri Pence. I am part of the product team at Goliath. All right. For those of you who have been on these sessions before, you'll notice that GoToWebinar has changed their platform. It's a whole new UI. So I apologize if it's taken you a little bit of time to kind of find your bearings, but no worries. We've got this session being recorded as well. So if it took you a little bit longer or it takes a little bit longer to get into the session, we'll make sure that you have the recording afterwards. As always, we want this to be engaging, so go ahead and use your question panel and ask any questions that you have. We actually have a lot of you that have sent questions in ahead of time during the registration, so thank you for that. We've got a lot to kind of queue up, but anything that you want to ask in real time, we will take those as well. We'll kick off with a quick poll once we get started, and then at the end of the webinar, we've got a quick 3-question survey. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a few, maybe 30 seconds to fill that out, that helps us to better prepare for the next webinar and make them more engaging for you. So like I said, we'll do a quick poll here to get started. Then we're going to jump into how the automated Citrix Health Checks work. So like, what are they? What is a health check? Some of you on here may not be familiar with Citrix Health Checks. So we'll do a little introduction to what that is, how they work, and then we're going to get into a demo where Kris is going to walk you through how he leverages the automated Citrix Health Checks and how he's automating the process and how it impacts his end user experience for his users across his organization. And then we'll take some time at the end for Q&A. But again, anytime you have questions, put them in. If we have an opportunity to answer them in real time, we're happy to do that. All right, so quick poll. Bear with me, it's a new UI for all of us. All right. Do you have a Citrix Health Check planned for 2026? It's a very simple yes, no, or something that you are considering. So if you'll take just a few more seconds to answer that, responses are coming in, so that means I did successfully launch this poll. So that's good. All right, just a couple more seconds. All right. Looks like the vast majority of you are in the consideration or you are planning on doing it. Well, you are in the right place. All right. Let's jump in. So I want to bring Kris in. Kris, we talk about the challenges for health checks, and that's a large part of why people have considered health checks in the past but haven't done them. What's your take? I know you and I were talking about this a little bit ago, just about how you've wanted to do them in the past and couldn't, and sometimes you've been able to do some, but you've had some resource issues. So let me just hear your take. Let the audience hear your take on that. What are some of the challenges with them?
Sure. In the long ago, I've been doing Citrix since 2006, so about 20 years now. I know in the earlier days, if you had a TAM, you could get a scheduled health check, I think it's once or twice a year, where they would come into your location. It would be a couple, 3 days they'd be in. They'd run some proprietary tool at the time to run through everything. So you had to basically block off 2 to 3 days to get a snapshot of what your environment was on that day to see what that picture looked like. Then they would return back. Then it took them about a week or so to put together the report to send back to you. So you're now 2 weeks into this at least. Then you get the report of what it looked like at that time based on what metrics they checked. And then you could work off that and show, hey, this is where we're at. We're meeting best practices, and here we're not. Later on, I know Scout got released to be used, and that may have been the tool they used at the time, but it opened it up to other people. But I don't think you can select 800 systems when you're wanting to do a Scout report. I think it's like 10 or 15 is what it's limited to, so you can run 10 or 15. Okay, let's run the next 10 or 15. And then you repeat this process. And when you get people that have thousands of endpoints, it's absolutely impractical.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot. That's part of what sort of brought us to the point where we needed to address the issue for many of our customers. That it's costly, it's time consuming. You mentioned it's a snapshot, so it's what the environment looks like at this time on this day. And if you're having to do it multiple times because it couldn't handle looking at thousands of endpoints at one time, it's not something you're going to repeat very often.
Or what if you have multiple farms? Let's say you have 2 or 3 farms that you have because it's a much larger company. Well, now you have to get approvals to run here, you have to get approvals to run here, and you have to run here. And then where do you pull all that information in to try to see it in one place? And what you're checking with those was typically best practices, not necessarily specific things that have evolved since then.
That makes total sense. So, Kris, I do know that there are some people on the session today who aren't familiar with what a health check is, a Citrix Health Check, and it's something that's sort of it's sort of rote vernacular across the EUC community, but it's not necessarily like a formalized thing. There are some consulting agencies that have sort of formalized the process of doing health checks. People talk about it sort of in general terms, but can you just kind of give everybody a rundown on what an actual Citrix Health Check is and why is it important?
And that's a great thing, Kerry, is that so a health check can also have multiple meanings depending on who you're talking to. Is it a health check of the underlying infrastructure? Is it a health check of best practices? Is it a health check of configuration? So sometimes it's hard to kind of quantify what exactly it is, and that would be somewhere people could get lost on it. In at least the vernacular of Goliath, I can see all of the checks that are scheduled that we have, and there's over 100 checks in the health check. That's what's great too, and we can scroll through and see those here in a little bit, and it checks all these different things. So services, power plans, things that you wouldn't think about. So SMBV1 is still enabled and could be enabled on a lot of systems by default. You could see the Join service. You can see Xbox Live. Okay, cool, Xbox Live if you're on a desktop and not on a work computer, but why is this running on a server? And that would be something that's really easy to get missed. And let's say that you use policy, for example, to push this out. What if the policy doesn't apply and you don't notice that, but the health check runs and you get that, oh, it's showing me it's there. So it kind of gives you a baseline snapshot in time. But the other thing is that you can do it quickly and repeatedly.
So why are they important? So there's an impact to end users, right? So, these seem like settings and configurations that you were sharing with me. A lot of them sort of get checked by default when you do upgrades or updates. They have an impact on end user experience in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases they do. So why is it important then to do a health check? And again, let's compare and contrast to sort of the traditional one-time snapshot event versus the ability to sort of do it ongoing.
Yeah, so in the old world, you would run typically one every 1 or 2 years. So you got a snapshot on that day, 2015. I know what that looks like. Here's the best practices based on today. Well, that's going to, how many versions of software came out in a year? How many updates came out? How many changes? Did best practices change in that time? So you get to see a picture once a year, and then by the time that you get all that remediated and where you need to be, you're off fighting other fires, and you may build a bunch more systems, something gets missed, and you put out something that's not where it's supposed to be. Whereas the ongoing health check, you can get that report every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever fits your needs, once a quarter, depending on how often that your environment would change. So that's something with an automated health check that you never would have gotten on a traditional, especially as you add new hardware, or say you open up for another agency or another division. Well, if that division didn't exist at the time, you don't know what that looks like.
So it seems like, and this is the case because this is where we've landed, that this whole idea of doing a health check is really a process that was just ready-made for automation, which is what you guys are going to see today and what Kris is going to show you. It's not just that immediate snapshot, which it is. You'll get that snapshot of what your environment looks like today, but it's the ability to do ongoing checks. So anytime something changes, new hardware, policy changes, updates, etc., anything that can check or that can mess with configurations and settings, you have the ability to sort of run these checks on a regular cadence. And it's automating the whole check. It's reporting on settings or configurations that are outside of best practices, and it's offering resolution guidance. You could have manual resolution where it tells you exactly what to fix, where to go to fix it, and how to fix it, as well as automated remediation options as well. But we'll get into that in just a few minutes. Right now, I just want to do a quick rundown of how the automated health check actually works. So it's deploying in your environment. It's pre-configured, so you don't have to go in and configure it. Think of these pre-configured checks as preventing future troubleshooting tickets, because that's really what they are. They're fixing problems or identifying and resolving problems that are potential issues for end user experience down the line. But after the module is deployed, it's checking for settings, configurations, anything falling outside of Citrix best practice thresholds. Again, not just one and done, but this is something that can be done over time and automatically. And it's also performing these checks and alerting on issues. So you'll get alerts that will tell you, okay, here's the 5 checks that failed. These are the servers that it failed on. And then it's also going to provide resolution guidance, tell you exactly what to do. So when we looked at that challenges slide at the beginning, and one of the challenges is you have to have deep Citrix expertise to actually action against any of these health checks. It takes care of that for you so that those remediation actions can be delegated to other parts of the organization and not just something that that the Citrix architects or the engineers are the only ones that can go ahead and do the remediation. And then it's providing reports, again, telling you which checks failed, which checks passed, and the resolution guidance that goes along with those. All right, that's enough of sort of the introduction. Really what we want to do is spend the lion's share of our time actually getting into a demo and conversation about Kris's use of the health checks and how he goes about using them on his, whatever his cadence is, but then what he does on a daily basis to sort of action against these to prevent. So, every IT team has their own share of firefighting where they're putting out fires that erupt that they didn't know about. But Kris is also going to talk about how he's leveraging it to prevent the fires. So he's proactively working on end user experience issues versus sort of always having to react. So I'm going to pass it over to Kris and Martin. Give me just a moment to make Martin presenter. All right, so you should have control now, Martin.
All right, and you should be seeing my screen now.
All right, perfect. It's popping up great. All right, so Kris, that first use case that we talked about was all about baseline and compliance and optimization. So do you want to kind of kick us off there and share some of your stories around that and how you're leveraging this?
Sure. So one of the great things is once you enable the health check and set that up in Goliath and you kick it off, that's kind of what you would bring in before. Where am I at today? What does today's picture look like? And like I said, there's 123 checks in there today. I know that there's been adds since previously, so that's number is higher than what it was. So that shows that there's development and more work going into that, making the product better. For example, here you can see you have 123 servers, 111 were passed. 90 of 100 of the health checks, sorry, 111 of the health checks passed at 123. 90 out of 100 servers passed. There's 10 that have an issue of some kind based on the parameters of the health check and what's configured for that. And that shows you where am I at now. Here's where we're at. This is what our environment looks like. That's good to run on a day one. If you have some kind of merger and acquisition, you have new infrastructure being brought to you, you have no idea what that environment looks like. It's been running for however many years by other people. So being able to add their environment to this and run it in, I can get a baseline of what does their environment look like. Then you can start working through each one of those line items, like the SMBV1, the diagnostic service, host service, the proxy scheduled task, the WinSet scheduled task. You can see all these things you need to remediate, and you can go ahead and apply those and then run the check again and see what's your new baseline, because that becomes your new baseline. That's kind of the ongoing purpose of it, makes it useful for that. And you know, in Citrix, you'll get at a project, somebody says, hey, I need 100 VDI for something, or hey, I want to put this new app in it. You build a bunch of servers, your process should be working as expected. You could be using like SECM, Chocolatey, PDQ, whatever you're using to get them built out, or you could be using golden images. And typically with this, you either see a real high pass or a real low pass. You don't typically see as much in the middle with these. It's kind of it worked or it didn't, which is also helpful. And then let you know if your other tools like your GPOs are applying that's supposed to be setting these, you're getting to see that.
So Kris, one of the things that you've mentioned in the past is being able to identify possible attack vectors. You know, this is, you know, you're talking about baseline, you're talking about antivirus updates, SMB1. So share a little bit about what you mean by that.
For example, it's best practices to disable SMBV1. Now, there are some, if you have in-house developed apps or things that have been around for a hot minute, they could have been written to do that. So that's one thing that can also tell you if you're bringing in a new environment, if you see that, because typically that should be disabled at this point. We're far enough past it should be disabled. But if you see it, that either you've got something older that's there that has to be looked at and maybe get security exemptions for or to do work on, or that something got missed in a configuration. That's kind of what that's telling.
Okay.
Xbox service, you don't want servers running Xbox service. We don't need gaming on, you know, work infrastructure. Unless that's your field. If that's your field, then that's different.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a mismatch in most cases. Martin, real quick, I know that we have several current Goliath customers on the session as well. Just want to give you a sneak peek for some of you who are using the health check report already. Martin's going to show you a sneak peek of the new report that's coming out. It's updated a little bit easier to read, a little bit clearer to understand, but just letting you know what's coming out. So again, focusing on the checks that are passed, the distribution of how many checks passed against the servers, and what are the top health checks that you need to go and address. So that's coming out soon. If it's something that you are interested in seeing, want early access to, go ahead and let us know. You can just type into the Q&A panel, just say early access, and we're happy to get you early access so that you can see what's coming out next.
And provide some input. You can see right there, there's a little bit new things like local host cache is showing there. So is local host cache enabled? That's a good that it's enabled if you have that turned on. The high performance power plant, because you think that when you install Windows Server, it's running full out. By default, it's, if you check it after a base install, it's going to be at least up through 2019. It was a balanced power plan, which means that's turning off things it doesn't need.
And for you astute viewers out there, if you're from a healthcare organization, you might notice that this sneak peek that you're looking at is not just Citrix, but it's Epic as well. So one of the questions that had come in earlier that came on a registration is, will we have any health checks for more than just Citrix? You're getting a sneak peek right here of, yes, we will have Citrix, and we have an Epic health check module coming out as well. So if you're a healthcare organization and you're using Epic, we've got something for Epic as well. All right, let's move on. Next topic. And this is something that you touched on earlier, Kris. So updates to the environment, and that comes in a lot of different flavors. It could be M&A, it could just be simple, just software updates or new software, new devices, or, you know, there's a number of ways that updates to the environment can impact end user experience. And so how are you leveraging the automated health checks to help with that?
The way that we're using it is, again, we have a lot of things that go in and out. In our environment, we'll build something, tear it down as just different projects come in. So it's good for us to go, hey, as we build something out, the health check runs, and I can go look at it, compare it to the last one, see if we're missing something that should have been put in place that was just missing a step, because there's still some manual processes in every company. There's always some manual process that has to be done. And you can quickly find if that health check happens to check for that, if that got missed.
What are some examples of the changes that you've found and been able to address with the health checks?
A lot of it was finding out how many services that were on that shouldn't be. It's again going after the best practices, but saying, okay, Joy and Xbox, let me look at the list here. Because I have to look at, because there's so many that's in there. So the
Because you've
Xbox
shared
Live
a bit
Offline,
about,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you've shared a bit about in the past about hardware policies, GPO, power plan, and then also how you're leveraging these to work with the different stakeholders to address the actual changes that need to be made.
Well, the good thing is that when I have the health check report, hey, when you have upper management go, what are you doing? How's this working? Here's our baseline. This shows you where we're at based on where we should be. Okay, we're meeting this percentage of our best practices right here. And that's something else that's another side benefits. You don't necessarily think about it. But if it's a, hey, what are you all doing? We want to know that you're doing the best you can. We can show where we're at based on that health check and that we're maintaining a good, clean environment.
And so when you run these health check reports and you run the report, you address all the items that need to be checked. I imagine then you probably run the report again to make sure that you captured everything. So you run a before and after? Is that typically how you handle
and
that?
I used to be way more aggressive about how often I wanted to run them, and then started to realize that realistically, you're not going to change that much in a week, 2 weeks. So 2 weeks to a month, and then just kind of reading it between, read that one and then make the changes, because it's going to be within 1 to 2 weeks that the next one runs. I think right now we run it on a weekly schedule. And that way I can just look at it and see the differences between it. I mean, I could on demand run it, which is nice, or I can just, hey, run it from this time period. That's also another nice feature of it.
So how often? So that's another good question. Again, kind of comparing and contrasting to the traditional way of doing this, which is, you said at the beginning, you do one every couple of years. You're running this every couple of weeks. How often do you see changes that happened in the environment that are captured by the health check report? So in other words, you run it every 2 weeks. Is it just a clean report every 2 weeks because you've taken care of it, and then maybe once every 3 months something pops up? Or do you see things pop up, maybe not in mass, but on a semi-regular basis? I don't know if regular
It might
is the
usually
right
be
term.
like 1 or 2 items typically. And again, where I refer to those, manual processes exist in every company.
Yeah.
That's just reality. And it's typically like something like that. You'll find it's like, hey, this got missed, or that's typically what I find in the health check, is that just something got missed in the manual process. But that's still important.
So Martin, can you hone in a little bit on the guidance, the remediation guidance that's there?
Yeah, absolutely. What you'll see within each and every health check that comes out of the product is, I scrolled down to this a little bit earlier, but say, for example, a check doesn't fully pass across 100% of servers. The health check will automatically, in the report, output which servers failed, an exit code to say, for example, maybe the check got blocked or truly failured or something like that, as well as you'll note in here some resolution notes. I'll zoom in here just so we can kind of read that. And accompanying each and every health check is this resolution notes that explains really what it's looking for, why it's important, as well as, most importantly, probably, how to remediate it. So exactly step by step, for example, what command to run to make sure that SMB v10 is not actually running in your environment as it's supposed to be disabled, right? And across each and every health check, same ability to go ahead and see exactly what's going on, remediate, and I'll even take you one step further as to show you, say, for example, running a command or just making a simple change in the environment is as easy in the product as automating that change as well. So if it's something that is supposed to be disabled or supposed to be configured, even say, for example, we've discussed about the high performance power plan here, as generally should be running unless you're have a specific kind of power consumption threshold to hit or something like that. You can go ahead and actually set out these steps in something like a script and attach that right to the health check in Goliath so that as soon as a configuration is noticed to be out of place, it can go ahead and remediate that for you without you ever having to lift a finger. But all this accompanied with each and every health check so that you really don't have to know exactly the significance of each and every one of these 123 checks that come out of the box.
One of them that is, I'd forgotten to mention, the memory dump creation. That one, if that shows up, if you got everything clean and you run it again and you see it, you could be having something causing the server to restart, and maybe that it's not used that often, or people don't necessarily always call when there's a problem. Sometimes they're like, oh, it'll fix itself in 5-10 minutes, and then they don't call about it. The memory dump creation in the health check showed, hey, this thing's generating dumps. So something is causing that to fail. Is it a Windows corruption, hardware failure? Again, it starts the process of going, why is this doing this?
And two, we talked about this a little bit. Some of this remediation, not some, you've got options for automated remediation and for manual guided remediation. So like Martin showed, if there are things that you're comfortable with letting happen on an automated basis, you have that option there, it's built in. If you'd rather verify the things that you're looking at and make sure it is actually a failed check and something that has to be addressed, or that you don't want turned on intentionally or off intentionally, you've got the guided remediation there as well. I want to shift gears just a little bit. We're going to go into end user experience. So all of this is about keeping your Citrix infrastructure up and running and optimized and compliant. But at the end of the day, all of it translates to, it's because we're trying to deliver a great end user experience to the end users. That's what all of this effort is about. So Kris, can you share a little bit about what you're doing? You've sort of set the foundation here with running the health checks. You've got a cadence of running them every couple of weeks. So you're taking proactive approaches there with automation to address potential end user experiences, or I should say cut off or head off potential end user experience issues. But what are some other things that you're doing to proactively address end user experience issues?
The end user experience scorecards. Those are great.
All right, Martin, you want to pull that up? Maybe Kris, you can kind of walk through what it is and how you're using it.
Yeah, so you have the Zen app and the Zen desktop, one for the app, one for the VI side of it, which is good to have. And that way, again, it's nice that it kind of separates the two pieces. But from here, I can kind of get a real quick visual to see what does this look like. And usually it's ran for the past 24 hours. So, okay, what do I have on that? Here I can see, okay, overall, we've got a red. That's not great. So we've got to figure out why we've got that red. In the greens, we see, okay, connectivity, connection speed's pretty good. Latency's pretty good. Round trip time pretty good. But we do have we have 5 users with an issue. So we need to go find out what those issues are for those people. So as we scroll down a little bit, for an example, we can see there's our 5 users that have a problem. We can glance at it and go, okay, what stands out the most? Okay, so we've got higher latency. I mean, it's not crazy latency. We're still under 150 milliseconds. So it's not the worst day ever, but it is concerning if it starts creeping up. 2, I can see that C. Giordinelli is using the HTML client. Well, maybe they're not supposed to be. Maybe they're supposed to be using the actual Workspace app. Their cache and cookies click cleared. And I know, well, if I've talked to them before, I could know that they're probably going to call me about a printer issue because their printers aren't going to map. Their devices aren't going to redirect the same way as it does in the full app. So I can go ahead and call and say, hey, you having a problem with this today? And they go, actually, yeah, I can't print. Well, let's get you switched back over to the full client so we can fix that. The other part, I can look at the Workspace app version that's right there. There could be something that got released about this particular version of it, and we know that people that have upgraded that have some weird performance issues. So we can go ahead and say, hey, I see that you updated. Yeah, it updated last night. Can you do something to help me out here? Yeah, we'll just remove it and reinstall it. So that's kind of where I go with that. And then again, the latency, that's not too high, but if it keeps creeping up more, it's something we definitely keep an eye on. And are they using remote or are they in the office? That's the other thing. Are they in the office or remote?
So before we kind of go into the next step, because I know you have a next step after that. So this is where you're identifying sort of the users that are having the worst day. Martin, just real quick, and this is, it's for everyone's benefit, but again, for current Goliath customers, I want you to see a little bit of what's coming out next. So we have our new speed and reliability report as well that I want to give you a sneak peek to. And this, Martin is pulling that up.
Working on it. Apologies.
Tried to vamp long enough, Martin, to give you some time, but
Yeah, I know. I run too many reports. Second here. It. Just a moment here to work on refresh.
So where Kris was starting, his starting point was with that end user experience scorecard, which is where you kind of start the forensic level investigation of exactly what's going on with the users and what the root cause is. The new speed and reliability report that Martin is working on finding right now, that translates it into plain language and allows you to segment into groups. So locations, business units, different IP addresses. It'll allow you to see which users or groups of users are having a poor experience and what the root cause is. And then you can go next level into that, which is where Kris was at, and get into the actual specific users and exactly what's going on with each user. And then we'll take you a little bit further. Martin, if you can't get it up, no worries. We'll transition to something else. I don't want to kill time here. So Kris, and we can come back to that later, Martin, if you're able to find it.
Yeah,
Kris,
I've got it.
so when you've got it?
Yeah.
Saved by the bell.
Open up, right?
To be determined. I still don't see it on the screen yet.
Just got to get the new updated GoToMeeting to agree with me.
Hey, anytime you're trying to do a demo, when's it going to fail? On the demo.
Demo
It
gods,
will always
exactly,
have a problem
right?
on the demo.
That's right. So look, you can see your overall end user experience score here at the top on the left. You can see the number of impacted users. So this is new to the report as well. So we're identifying who the users are. You can see the distribution of the scores. So, you might look at that and say, all my users are the end user experience score across my organization is a 93 and think everything is good. But when you're in particularly a large organization, those numbers, those averages get watered down. So now let's look at the lowest 10% of the end user experience scores, and let's really see who's having a bad day. So now you can identify the users that are in that lowest 10%. You can see the distribution of the people who are having, you've got, in this example here, you've got 10 users that have a score between 31 and 40, 42 users that have a score between 41 and 50. My eyes aren't great, so I hope I'm capturing those numbers correctly. And then if you look at the table below, you can actually see what's the root cause of these. So is it something tied to their user's location? Is it a networking issue? Is it something that the user's doing on their side, user behavior? Because that's one of the things that impacts end user experience that IT has to troubleshoot all the time, is trying to identify, well, what's the actual user's behavior on the session, and are they impacting or causing the issue, and whether or not there's issues on the server side. So again, this is sort of finding large groups and identifying where your users are that are having the worst experience. And then you can kind of go to that report where Kris started. But let's take it a step further now. So Kris, we identify our users that's having a bad day. You're going to go into the Goliath console and actually look up that user session and start to troubleshoot it. So can you kind of walk us through what that process looks like? And I'm going to give you guys a little teaser here. We're going to go through this process in the Goliath console today, and then Martin is going to pull up another sneak peek of a brand new UI and kind of walk through the same process within our new UI. So you're going to get a sneak peek of what's coming out here in the not too distant future. All right, so Kris, you've identified a user having a particular bad day. Talk to me about what that scenario might look like, and what do you do to go address it?
All right, so there we got C. Giardinelli at the top. Wow, Giardinelli. What words are hard today? So we got them. So I can see at the top. Right now they're logged off, but we can also, if we needed to, we could pull their historical for the past 5 days and look at that, or last week, whatever we want, we can. And so we can see here disconnected, logged off sessions. And you notice at the very bottom, we have a different icon, but we're seeing, yeah, so that's the HTML5 client. They've probably been having problems for a little bit. We can check the dates on it and see what the dates were. 1/9, 1/15. So yeah, the last like 2 weeks or so. Their issue could be the fact they're using the HTML client. That very well could be it. But we look at that may not, but if it is, we can at least check that. Because we do have some people that, that's very common for vendors to use the HTML5 client because they can't install software. So that's not a big deal. And that could be expected, but for a regular user, it's not. We can see that they had a logon time of 32.7 seconds, which isn't terrible. But their round trip is a little slow, and their average round trip's a little slow. So we would click into the session. If they had an active session, that would be ideal. But since we have a lot of disconnected session, we can look here and see what did it look like when that was occurring. So I don't see anything that's standing out huge. There are some spikes in the round trip, some spikes in latency. Yeah, see 427 milliseconds, they're going to notice that. Anything above 150 milliseconds, you're going to notice. So I'm going to try to see what was happening at those times too. If there's any way I can see, I can look at the processor use for that, the RAM use for that, and see, was it spiking at the same time? And it doesn't look like it's spiking at the same times. Good.
So Kris, and I know right now you're kind of at the mercy of our lab environment. So you're kind of trying to troubleshoot something that is part of the lab. Can you kind of walk through? You can guide Martin to the areas that you look at, but can you kind of walk through a scenario that like you have troubleshooted in the past, where and this is where you went to look to find the issue, and this is how you resolved it. That might be a little bit easier than trying to sort of troubleshoot on the fly on a demo session.
Yeah, but seeing what you're seeing is exactly how I would do it. It's always person, place, or thing. Can I narrow it down to a person, where they're at, or what they're using? That's what I always try to narrow it down to.
Gotcha.
So for example, where we saw that round trip time, bouncing up, I'm gonna look, is there a latency at that same time? Did their connection bottom out? Is the CPU spiking? Is the RAM spiking? That's the things I'm gonna look at that time. See, was the system overloaded? I can check the system. Once I see that, you can use some PowerShell and some invokes, or you can log on the machine and see, was there a TDI RPM session? Was there a session, my brain's not braining, session reliability, did that get engaged? Because to the user, it will appear like it froze. That just means they had a network hiccup and it's trying to keep it the same. Yeah, and then you have the event logs. You have stuff right here to help you look and see, is there anything that pops out here? I always forget that one's there, and then I see it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can check that. And then with the logon, I can see, I check under logons to see about processing times, like how long did this take? And this is where you'll find like errant policy sometimes. If you see that, GPO processing is 2 minutes, which I've seen happen before, and then I can look and through what policy did that, and then I can track down who did that, when they did it, and sometimes it's somebody applied something to know you they shouldn't have, or just it got included somewhere in the mix. Had that happen, and I've found it through the console. Like, well, that policy, that's a weird name. What is that? And then you go track down the person. It's like, yeah, I was working on this. You mean to do this? No, I didn't. And then we just get it removed and find it, and then we resolve the issue. The ICA HDX tab, I look at for more of the connection information, like how's my round trip performance, how's my connection speed look, and ICA channel usage. Like if you see this, they say, okay, every day about this time I'm having this where it seems a little slow. Are they running videos at that time? Like which particular bandwidth is bouncing? Something I can look here and say, okay, seamless window. Just looking here again, trying to find corollary events is kind of what I do with it. The next step would be like the app server and hypervisor host to check, is there something going on with the hosting hardware? Like, is there something happening on that? Let's check the machine. Okay. Oftentimes you see with patching, especially, you could run out of space really quickly, and you'd be able to see it on the app server and look that you'd be able to see that really quickly, that right there, oh, it's got this percentage space available. if you click on that, Martin, the app server. Here it says right there, the storage. Patching happens, patches can be large, and you know what happens when you run out of space, you get weird things happen. And that could be something really quickly you see, oh, I need to fix that. Or if you have disk latency, maybe your backend array is having some issues. You can see that here. And then you have the hypervisor host check the underlying hardware. What does your host look like? What does their throughput look like? Are they seeing spikes at the same time I see spikes on their session? Again, looking for corollary events. That's kind of how I use it. Is trying to find patterns.
So Martin, do you want to just give a little bit of a sneak peek of the new UI?
Certainly can. And just want to kind of emphasize a bit off what Kris is saying, or, corollary events correlation is sort of the name of the game when it comes to troubleshooting, especially a extended period session, right? So the fact that all the data is sort of tied to that exact same time frame tends to be a pretty big time saver for a lot of folks, right? Being
And
able
it's
to
really
come
easy
in
to
here
see
and
it.
see.
I
Exactly.
can see it one place. I'm not going to 5 different panels to see this, Martin. That's one of the things I like about this is I can see the VDI, I can see the app server, I can see the host hardware. I get the whole picture. It's I'm not saying it's single pane of glass, but it's a lot towards that to help you see things in one place.
Exactly. And actually, a great segue into what Carrie just mentioned, a new UI. So everybody on the webinar today or anybody watching it back here in the future is going to get a little bit of an exclusive sneak peek here into some improvements that are coming into the technology pretty soon here. One of the things around our workflow that you've seen even over today's session has been things like checking a report first as a starting point, pulling data, and then going to look at that data. That's all accessible here in the product. One of the big changes in approach to how our customers are going to be interacting with the technology is to sort of unify that entire workflow. And so what you'll see in
So
an upcoming
Martin,
update, yes,
are you showing the new UI yet? Because
Not
I'm
yet.
only
jumping
seeing
over
the old
to
one.
it now.
I'm gonna
Okay,
make a
all
point here
right.
too. That UI, when you see it, how quickly it's going between things, that's not enhanced for your viewing. It is that fast with 1,000 objects, 2,000 objects. It's still that fast. That's something that's impressed me about it.
Yeah, so what you'll see, and as you guys kind of notice, we were looking at a little bit earlier, even on this webinar here, is the end user experience scorecard, right? Quantifying, say, for example, out of all of our users, how many are having issues maybe from their home network or from the overall network impacts or slowness in their session, maybe long logons or anything like that. The new UI in the product, we'll start here with just kind of the end user experience for Citrix, aims to unify that entire workflow by bringing to you upfront that output that you get from the upfront view of your end user experience scorecard. How many users are actively having issues, or over a certain time period, maybe the past day, past week, what have we been seeing in the environment? How does that trend over time? And even be able to scroll down here to be able to see things like breakdowns by delivery group, by IP ranges, org units,
Oh, that's nice.
or even top impacts of users. So those users with the lowest scores, as they normally would be presented on your end user experience scorecard, are live updated, presented to you right here so you can see exactly who's having those issues. And then with a single click, drill straight into those users, see their activity over time, or be able to do a wider search. Maybe I notice this user's having issues from a particular client version, client device, location, whatever it might be. I have the ability to put my next search right into here and pivot straight off of there to get exactly down to root cause in 1 to 2 clicks or just a few searches based on exactly what I'm looking for here. You'll see, as compared to our old UI, I'll pull this back up for you real quick, that click into a user session, showing you things like that connection path for the user, summary metrics, and access to all of those different pieces that we were just showing through that makes everything convenient and easy to access is all right here. Unchanged, here for you to see. A little bit cleaner, in my opinion, to be able to see all of this data, where the impacts are, things like your
Okay, that's
logon
slick.
breakdown,
I haven't seen this, guys,
your
either. I haven't seen this, so this is nice to see. This is really cool.
your correlated data, and then a bit, again, that ability to drill through. If you're curious about IC and HDX, it's all still here for you. Threshold lines, all of that data presented in this single place so you can see exactly what's going on at any point, even getting rid of that weird little scroll that I had to do in our old UI here before. So all of this presented for ease of use, but even getting down here, just recall I'm here after 2 clicks. I didn't have to copy or memorize a user. I didn't have to go read one report, go to a different report, and then to my UI. It's all unified, drill straight back into the users, all from a top level view that's extremely easy to understand.
Okay, that's cool.
Thanks.
I'm not gonna
Thanks,
line, that's
Martin,
cool.
for showing that.
That's really cool.
And if you're interested, whether you're a Goliath customer or not, if you're interested in getting a early access and a sneak peek at any of the new features that we're talking about, including a sneak peek at the UI, let us know. We're happy to help you. You can just type early access into the question panel, and we'll be happy to set time up to give you that preview. Claudia has been putting in the chat link. So if anybody's interested in a demo or a trial, wants to do a POC of the health checks, there are links in the chat that you can leverage, and you can sign up for that. Or you can just type into the question panel demo or trial or early access or sneak peek or whatever words you want to use to let us know what your intent is, and we're happy to help you out with that. All right, we're going to transition now to Q&A. Pardon me. Again, new GoToWebinar UI, so it doesn't feel as native yet. Haven't used it enough times. Give me just a moment. All right, this should be it. All right, so we're going to transition to Q&A, but again, if you're interested in a demo or trial, or even if health checks sound great, but again, your IT team is strapped and you don't have time for it, even if they're automated, we can help you out with a health check service as well. And it always includes support for deployment, post-check analysis, again, the remediation instructions, as well as end user experience. So if you have questions, again, type them into the question and answer panel. We'll be happy to take those. We've had some coming in. And like I said, we've had several that came in on the registration form, so thank you for those. So how will these health checks work on an ongoing basis? I guess so. I think the questions are around whether or not vendor guidance changes or if best practices change. So these health checks are updated on a quarterly basis. So even though Citrix guidance might change or other vendor guidance might change or best practices might change, thresholds might have to be updated. These will be updated on a quarterly basis, so you'll always be using current vendor guidance. So it's not like the checks themselves will go out of date.
Yeah, and for an example, like the memory dumps and hard errors, I mean, those are things that are still useful to point out that you could have a failing machine or some issue in the environment. So again, there's always use in it, even with any of the checks in there, there's always use you're going to find out of the checks.
Kris, I'm going to let you handle this next question. You addressed it earlier on, but the question is how often should these checks be run?
I'd say part of it would be how often your environment changes. Again, I used to be very aggressive about how often I would run it, but again, that's because of me being hyper vigilant of the environment. Realistically, probably every 2 weeks to a month. If your stuff doesn't change very often at all, maybe once a quarter. I would start it probably a month for me, because that's about as far as I'd like to go, because again, things go in and out, and being able to see that, like again with the hard errors and memory dumps, things like that, you could have quite a few of those happen if you had an ongoing problem to see. So I'd say probably a month to 2 weeks to a month are probably where I would at. Depending if you have a really huge environment, maybe a little bit less, a little bit longer, because it's going to take a minute to run. But
okay. This is another one that we touched on earlier, but I'll go ahead and address it in case others had the same questions. But will there be health checks other than Citrix? And you guys got a little bit of sneak peek of that with the health check report. We have an Epic health check coming out, an Epic speed and reliability health check coming out very, very soon as well. So if you're a healthcare organization and you guys are leveraging Epic for your EHR, we've got an Epic Health Check coming out as well. Are consulting services needed to fix issues? So I can give you sort of the Goliath answer, but Kris, this would be a good question for you as well. So considering that we've added resolution guidance into the automated health checks and the reporting that comes out on exactly where to go and how to fix it, do you think consulting services are required then to remediate issues for health checks?
The vast majority, no. It would be, you know, I could see if it was that you didn't, like if somebody was handed the environment and then didn't necessarily have as much experience in that. But again, that would be scaled automation on that. So I really don't see that.
And that's
It's
part
pretty
of,
straightforward on how to fix it.
and it was designed with that in mind. So we actually had a Citrix CTP help us co-develop this. So this individual actually runs health checks. So like Kris was talking about, where they do sort of one health check every couple of years, he actually runs health checks. And so what we did was sort of automate that process that a consultant would normally come in and do. And so when you have that consulting engagement, they're going to come in, they're going to do the health check. That's one charge. You'll get probably a report out of that. If you need help translating that report, well, those are going to be some other consulting services that you're going to be charged for as well. If you need help after that translation actually actioning on the items that need to be addressed, well, that's another consulting engagement that you'll get charged for. So the whole idea behind this is to eliminate the need for all of these upcharges in consulting engagements. So Kris, and we didn't pre-stage this, so I asked Kris that on the fly. You know, he is the one who runs these health checks. He's the one who's going to either take care of the issues on his own or delegate to his team. It was an honest question on, is that something that you guys can handle in-house now that you've got all that resolution guidance? So
It's
thank you,
pretty
Kris,
straightforward. And no problem. And again, you have the ability to remediate it from there, which again, a lot of people get a little trepidatious about, you know, auto remediation. I get that because you don't want to knock something during the middle of the day when it's running. But it gives you what you need to do. So with a little bit, and again, here's the PowerShell command to do it. It's not hard to do in Vokes. It's not hard to do that kind of stuff, as long as you know you have things in place to do that, but it's not really that hard.
Yeah. Next question is for healthcare organizations. This person says, we're a hospital. Do you have anything for troubleshooting Imprivata or Dragon? We actually will very, very shortly. So we're gonna, when Martin was kind of going into the ICA channels, we're adding channels for Imprivata and Dragon as well. So you'll be able to see
Dragon, naturally speaking.
Dragon dictation, yeah.
Yeah, one thing to understand with that is that that's about a mega stream for every audio with Dragon. That's one thing to always keep in mind, is that it is a little hefty on the requirement and it doesn't like latency.
And you're going to be able to easily pick that out when we add that channel in. Martin, question for you. So this came in, how long does it take to get this deployed and stood up? This is kind of a two-pronged question, because it would be, if you're a Goliath customer, there's one answer, and if you're not a Goliath customer, there's another answer. So you want to take that, Martin?
Sure. Yeah, I did an implementation of the Citrix Health Check this morning. Took about 20-25 minutes, start to end. That was on an existing Goliath instance. So for current customers, very simple and easy to get set up. For anybody interested in getting into the technology, the software itself is about a 2-hour install to full configuration. So it's, you know, start to end. Once you kick off the installer till you're up and running, and can troubleshoot sessions is about 2 hours. And then again, that about 20 minutes to get the health check up and running.
Yeah, it took me longer to deploy the clients than it did to set the entire environment up. I mean, really, it did.
So it's a quick process, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are coming up on time. If you are from a healthcare organization, we have on February 5th another webinar coming up. It's a healthcare IT focused webinar. We have Dr. Brian Patty, who is a former CMIO, who worked closely with his CIO and their IT team on clinician and user experience. So that is coming up on February 5th. Claudia has dropped the link in the chat for that as well. Of course, there's a QR code. You can leverage that. Kris, thank you so much for coming on. Love having you on these. You are a true expert in the world of Citrix, but also can give real assessments on how to leverage some of these different solutions to help you deliver that end user experience for your users across your organization. So thank you so much for jumping on with us today. And Martin, as always, thank you for walking us through and being sort of Kris's visual representation of the stories that he was sharing. And thank you everyone who joined the session. Our next session will be February 26th, I believe. You'll receive an email on that, and of course you'll get a follow-up email post-webinar with the recording of this session as well. So again, if you are interested in learning more or would like a trial or a demo or a sneak peek into anything that we showed you, we are happy to help you with that. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.